meeting,
Recording in
December
progress.
15, 2021. At this time, it is 6:34. Okay, I know. All right. Any changes to the agenda, if any? I would like to make two changes to the agenda. First, I would like to move old business at number A about the lease executive session to right before we adjourn the meeting. So it will be at the very end of the meeting as it was last time.
May I?
Yes.
I'm sorry to say that, because you didn't look around, so that's not criticism.
Yeah.
I was wondering if this would be an appropriate meeting to ask what any status is on the listers. And then that's number one. Number two would be, is there any need felt by the board for any preparation on the move we made regarding the road supervisor's income in preparation for town meeting?
Do you want to bring that up under other reports from select board members concerns? Other reports? Any other reports?
Okay, yeah, I can. So don't ask for change, just include those items in that meeting.
Yes. Right, anything you want to put in
All
there, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and I'd also like to move up the recycling item from old business 5B to members of the public after we review the special meeting and regular meeting minutes. Anybody else have any changes to the order of the agenda? Just for Peter's acknowledgement, in the room we have David Jones, Gwen Tanza, Stan Noga, Bruce Mello, myself, Mark Bills, and Guy Tanza. And online we have Dan Howler and back to me and Peter. Right. All right, so now we will move to reviewing and approving the regular meeting minutes from the December 1st, 2021 meeting. We will start on page 1. Does anyone have any changes for page 1? Hearing none, we'll move to page 2. Does anybody have anything they wanted to note for changes on page 2 of the December 1st agenda? Okay. Page 3, does anybody note or have anything for page 3? Bruce? And
I don't have it
Stan.
from me, but bear with me. Under select board chair, first paragraph, last sentence, mask mandate November 29th on April agenda. Then what am I missing?
This message received a note from thanks from the town council to support this one. Big, all right. The governor.
Question.
Question. So, just bring the last sentence.
I don't know.
Mask mandate November 29th.
It says, select board chair report. Okay. The governor, I mentioned during my report that the governor could issue a mask mandate at a special legislative session.
Maybe we just end it there.
Yeah, period.
Strike from Monday to the end of that line, Peter, does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, and then Stan, okay, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, one other, excuse me.
okay,
Third paragraph, $10,000 donation for the church. I should say is a match.
It's a $10,000 donation, which we hope to find match for.
Whatever. That's it.
is it up to 10,000 in matches?
We're gonna get $10,000, but he's using it as an incentive to get people to try to match it.
What does that mean? If we only get 8,000, you'll give us 10?
Let's look at this 10.
Okay. Is it correct?
Correct.
But don't tell anybody.
All right.
It would be a matching donation of up to $10,000. It's kind of see.
I don't recall a discussion on this. Is there a need to add something here?
No.
I'm confused. Isn't it a donation of $10,000?
It's a donation that's not been made yet. It will be made as needed, as we requested between now and a date in June.
Okay.
But it says on the card here,
Yeah.
there will be a matching donation up to $10,000, which tells me we gotta match $10,000 in order for him to give us.
Daniel, you're on the committee, the meeting house committee. They're talking about Mr. Cutler's donation. So with the word a match, how would you interpret this again? You and Leanne have spoken with him before, so.
Yeah, greetings, members. I actually have not spoken with Mr. Cutler. Leanne did, but I mean, a matching contribution or donation traditionally means we only, as Bruce mentioned, we only get it if we are able to raise that much. But my understanding was that Mr. Cutler intends to make good on his pledge to contribute that amount to the meeting house restoration. But you know, as was mentioned, we were just trying to use it as leverage to encourage other donations.
I guess the only thing I'll say is I understand what it said. Are we positive you read the letter? Last meeting? Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't recall hearing that it was a matching donation.
Yeah.
He did use the
Just
word-
because this flyer that the committee put out says that doesn't necessarily mean
Right, that's
that.
true.
I'm confused. And we're not talking about the flyer. We're talking about the discussion of the actual donation. So I think
Yeah, that's important.
if
We'll find out in a hurry.
we should clarify that.
My understanding is that Mr. Cutler is not making it contingent on us raising that amount from this.
I didn't reread that.
That was not part of the discussion in this minute.
Right. Right. Yeah, and yeah, right.
So as it's reported here in the minutes, it appears to be accurate as stated during that meeting.
Okay, this letter will confirm my offer and my commitment to provide a donation of up to $10,000 at any time between now and July 30th, 2022 for the restoration and upkeep of the Brookline Meeting House.
And the story.
Well, no, he's got
Yeah,
up to.
say,
What's the more to it?
He's got up to.
oh,
It's up to.
Up to. So,
That's not definite,
yeah.
not definite. Up to.
these funds may be tapped by you all at once or incrementally in installments of no less than 2,000, blah, blah, blah. Need notice to get it.
Can I just make a suggestion that we merely amend these
Mhm.
to say donation of up to $10,000 for restoration?
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Does that
yes.
Sure.
make sense, Peter?
I'm at your service.
Thank you.
Yes, and your idea in the donation was to encourage other people to try to raise another $10,000. Okay, anything else outstanding? You wanted to say something, page 3?
Yeah, Peter, I'm apologizing in a way, I don't need to be overly picky, but I've only seen AOT in the last paragraph under select board chair report as all capital letters in a newspaper or anything that comes from the state. So the capital A,
Okay,
capital.
that's sort of become a convention in the school world for agency of education, agency of transportation, so forth. They put the small O in there, but I will do
Really?
it.
Okay. No, maybe I need an education, I'm sorry.
Well, it's AOT is Agency of Transportation,
Yeah.
which they also deal with, but I'll just do it your way.
I've seen it always.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm seeing both ways.
I haven't. Right, I learned something.
I always thought it was a Vermont thing.
Anything else on page 3? Okay, minutes on page 4. Minutes on page 5, any changes? None, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes from the Wednesday, December 1st, 2021 Select Board meeting as amended. May I have a second?
Second?
Seconded by David, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Minutes have passed as amended. Next, we will review the draft minutes from the special budget meeting that was held on Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. Short set of minutes here. Does anybody have any changes or amendments or things that they'd like to see changed on this sheet?
It does.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes from Wednesday, December 8th, 2021 as presented. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Stan. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from December 8th special budget meeting as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. Approved. You. Two. All right, members of the public, I'd like to introduce you all to Dan Towler. We moved him up in the agenda. We're going to be talking a little bit about Dan is our representative to the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District, and Dan did send me information on December 9th about our dues and so on and so forth, but I think we wanted to talk a little bit about the bid and hear your end of it, Dan. So what do you want to say?
Thanks, Dot, and greetings, members. Before I'm gonna try not to take up a lot of time here because I know you guys spend already giant chunk of your evenings on these meetings, but I am happy to come before you and discuss this at any other time in addition to tonight. But before I even mention the container, a sort of related note. I, as some of you know, like to walk the the roads in Brookline on days when the weather's not too horrible. And I did this yesterday. I walked from my house down Hill Road to Grassy Brook and back around to the other end of Hill Road and back up. So, and I've taken to carrying a plastic bag with me and picking up cans and other stuff along the road. And just because, I don't know, it offends me to see, that kind of stuff along the road. But the depressing aspect is no matter how often I do this walk, I still find the same amount of stuff, it seems like, each and every time. Yesterday, I collected 25 cans, and that's without, going off into the brush. That's just cans that I would have stepped on if I didn't stoop down and pick them up. And in addition to other plastic containers and things like that, but and trash as well. But I don't know if there's, it's an issue everywhere on the globe, and it's, comparatively minor in comparison to some other ways that we're harming the planet and so forth. But I don't know if, and also littering, is really impossible to enforce just about, I guess. But, there's people in the town, we don't know how many or who they are, but riding around drinking beer, which is obviously against the law by itself, and then tossing their cans out the window, which is, infuriating as well. But I don't know if there's anything to be done, signs that say a fine or what have you. Who's going to enforce it? I don't know. We don't have any police in the town. So I don't know. Maybe we can't do anything, but I'm just throwing it out there as something that bothers me. And while I was on my walk, I also spent about a half hour cleaning up around the recycling container, which is a constant thing. And I guess Guy has done it a lot, and I don't know, others have probably. And this is one of my concerns about keeping the container there. Actually, it's a complicated issue because I'm about the biggest proponent of recycling you can find. And totally in favor of making it convenient and easy for people to recycle, which that container certainly does. But to my mind, it makes it a little too easy, as has been discussed before, because it's in a space where nobody can see who comes and goes or who's tossing in what. And it's just subject to, it lends itself to incredible amount of abuse. There's no way of knowing what percentage of people in the town use it, what percentage of people who use it are not from town. There's no way of knowing what that goes in the container actually ends up getting recycled and what doesn't. I've tried to find out, but I can't find out any answer to that. The biggest thing that worries me about doing away with the container is that, and I'm sure this has occurred to you perhaps too, is that our town meetings average maybe 40 or 50 people, which is, small percentage of the residents. And if the town meeting votes to not fund the container and it goes away, there's going to be a lot of people who are used to using it who don't even hear about it until they notice it's not there. And I'm afraid there might be some blowback and even some perhaps, trash left at the site, whether there's a container to put it in or not. So it could invite other problems. But the cost keeps going up every year. The town meeting budgeted, I believe, the last time $27,000 for it and $22,000 the year before. It's certain to go up each year. According to Guy, our actual expense for the last fiscal year of disposal was 18,000 something. But as far as I can tell, the container gets emptied about an average of every 5 days and costs us approximately $250 each time. It is what it is. We discussed a little bit at a town meeting a couple of years ago, possibly moving it to the town yard or some other place that could be monitored better, that could be only open at certain hours and days. I guess there are pluses and minuses with that plan. There are a lot of problems with it. But one thing that is apparent to me is that that makes it seem like the container is arguably not even a necessity is that I believe that state law requires commercial haulers of trash to also offer hauling of recyclables for no extra charge if they're already picking up your trash. So in theory, at least, people who in Brookline, which means pretty much almost everybody who pays to have their trash picked up, could also pay to have their recycling collected, for very little, if any, extra expense. I'm not sure that there's that we're actually, there's a lot of people that love having that container there, but would people be able to recycle if it wasn't there? Sure, if they wanted to. Another thing that I just want to mention, and I think I raised this a while back, but is that the town of Athens, our neighbor, which is, as you know, similar in size and population to us, as far as I can tell from their town report, they actually subsidize trash and recycling for all of their residents out of the tax base. Their expense in the town report in the budget for trash and recycling and removal for the last year was $37,452. And they contract with a trucking company from New Hampshire to do all the hauling. I guess that's what the 37 grand gets spent on. And they recoup $12,657 from the sale of trash bags to residents for $350 a piece. They have to use those bags if they want to get their trash picked up by the town. And so that means their net expense was about 25 grand for trash and recycling for everybody. So I don't know if that's something we want to talk about in Brookline. But it seems like it might be something worth thinking about for the town. Anyway, I guess that more or less covers, the things that I had on my mind. But I sort of typed up a little a list just for my own, notes as much as anything of, the arguments in favor of and against having that container. And I'm perfectly willing to email each of you a copy of it, just so you have the, you can, use it as something to think about.
Well, thank you, Dan, that would be great, yeah. I think you had mentioned the Athens trash a while back to me, and I had forgotten about it. So they sell the bags, okay? Yeah.
So my assumption, Dan, I don't know if you've dug into this anymore. So my assumption is that Athens has a transfer station themselves where maybe it's contracted out by maybe they haul it with a trash collector, but they don't have curbside collection at all of their houses, do they?
I believe that's what they have. I believe they do. I don't think they have their own transfer station. I don't know where the hauler takes the trash. There's a lot I don't know about it, but I assume all you'd have to do is pick up the phone and talk to, the town clerk or somebody over there, and they could probably fill you in. I did call one time and got a few answers, but it was a while back. But as far as I know, they don't have their own transfer station.
I believe they do.
I assume that their trash probably goes to Rutland along with everyone else's. The materials recovery facility there that Casella runs, that seems to be where all the Southern Vermont trash and recycling goes to be sorted out and, delivered from there.
Is our approach been that people pay
Say
their own
again?
trash collector to collect their trash or deliver it themselves to the Brattleboro site? And those bins down there are purely for recycling, aren't they?
Yeah.
The bins down here
Yeah.
are purely for recycling, right?
We're not involved in any contractual way with someone to pick up trash in our town.
No,
We are not.
But I think that's what Dan is saying,
That Athens does.
proposing, or I'm not saying you're necessarily proposing it, but is saying that it could be something that the town could consider.
I see.
Contract, I mean, let's assume for the moment that it is that they contract to one hauler and that hauler picks up trash and recycling at every residence in town.
Or whatever.
Like, it would be along the lines of, Franklin, I think, probably collects at more houses in Brookline than any other trash collector does. Although I'll say they do not collect at anywhere near even half of the houses, I don't think, in town. But let's say that we, as a town, we contracted with them for whatever they would want. I don't know what the cost would necessarily be to collect trash and recycling at everybody's houses. It's worth noting that there are an awful lot of people in Brookline who do not pay a hauler for their trash collection. They have a permit at the Solid Waste Management District and they take their trash there. I think the majority of the board are among them.
I'm there all the time, so.
But yeah, I mean, it's
an option.
It's an option. I mean, I guess what I'd say is, by your own estimation, it's possible that still ends up being the same expense that that the tax base is paying now, if not more than that. And it would also mean it would be an expense in some cases for people who don't think that they're having that expense.
Yes, but that expense would also, it would be more than what we're paying to have the recycling container emptied, but it would cover the entire town, and it would include trash. People would not have to pay whatever they pay now to Franklin or whoever. It seems like it would be a net saving, in other words, what I'm saying.
Right, I guess what I'd say is that's predicated on pretty limited information at this point about
Yeah, sure.
exactly what Athens does, exactly what services they have, what the scope of the service that that vendor is offering.
Right.
But it's something that could warrant more investigation, certainly.
Okay.
So maybe if he wants to follow up on that and see.
I think he's asking this, so I'm gonna ask Gwen. Gwen, would you mind calling Athens and asking them some questions about their contract with recycling for this, and find out what they do, what they charge, and how they manage it? I mean, I know they have some services other than what we have here in town, but, yeah, we'll do a little research on it.
What's the population in Athens is?
It's also worth noting that, I mean, and other people do this.
And the roads, there's not much difference in the length of the roads.
Yeah.
Roads are not that much difference, and I think the population size isn't that much different, but,
Right, the population in an area is very similar to us.
right, I agree. Bruce?
I'm not saying everybody should do what I do, because, I'm not disabled. No, I'm not an issue. Taking my trash to the dump. I pay my $40 a year, and quite frankly, considering what everybody's talking about right now, it's cheap. I might go twice or three times, cost me $15, and the back of my truck gets filled up. And I'm not saying everybody should do it that way, but if you're a small homeowner that is elderly or has a disability and they can team up with somebody else, it's way cost effective, in my opinion, for Bruce, to spend the $40 a year plus the 2 or 3 or 4 visits that I make a time per year to do my trash garbage. The example, right now I have a full container that's going to the dump next week. That's it till March. I clear out before winter and then I fill up. I'm not talking about the recycle, cow recycle, stuff that like carrot waste and garbage and dish and kitchen waste, which can go straight into the cow bin down there. But because there's 3 things. There's that, there's the trash, and then there's the recycle of the stuff that the bin is for. And it would be very easy for me to do all 3 down there for very nominal money. What I'm suggesting is we should look at that too. And if we have people that have issues in town that can't do it, maybe something could be arranged where people team up or something like that.
I can't arrange, but we can't organize that.
Well, just a minute,
Yeah,
just a minute.
I just can't imagine.
$27,000. It's a lot of money. And just 1 minute, guy, relax. Dan, you represent the meeting house. I would love to put $27,000 in that building right now. I think it's a horrible waste of money. So that's my feelings about it. Everybody else can have their own opinions, of course, but that's being responsible. I think I'm responsible with my trash and my garbage and my recycling. And it's a little bit of, and plastic goes back to Hatfield, remember, and we do it all the time. And I guess it's just, to me, it's being a concerned citizen and keeping costs down.
Yes,
Yes, Guy?
I just wanted to mention, Dan, that Athens isn't part of the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District. And I'm just curious of why that is. Do you have any idea what that is? Because our dues is $3,487.83, which again, we're paying to Wyndham Solid Waste Management District.
Yeah.
For hazardous waste and-
I have noticed, that's a good question, Guy. I've noticed that not all the towns in Windham County are members of the district. And I'm not sure why Athens is not, but I noticed something in their town report about a levy paid to some Windsor solid waste district. So maybe they pay some other district. But,
Yeah, they may just be part of a different district.
even though they're,
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. I was just curious about that.
Something to look at in the future.
Yeah, Daniel, thank you very much for your input on this. It's a very interesting way to look at the recycling and know how to spend the money most appropriately. And when we get into the budgeting, we'll talk about it a little bit more today.
Yeah, if I may just say, if it does, obviously it will come up at town meeting, and the hope is we'll have an in-person town meeting, but I think it would be good if all of us sort of had our thoughts in line on this, whether or not to fund this container, and we're prepared to speak on it, so that voters can make an informed decision.
I appreciate that.
I think I noticed the last time, I think the select board voted 5-0 opposed, but nobody said anything. But anyway, and it passed by one vote, the expenditure. Is that all?
Last year,
Last
passed by
election.
more.
Yeah, last year it passed by more than that.
That's true.
2
Last
years
year,
ago when we had,
right.
when we had
2 years
physical
ago, it
count.
was one vote. That's right.
Right.
Last
Anyway.
year it was more in favor of it.
Yeah, 43 to 29, I think.
Yeah,
About 13, huh?
yeah.
14.
Interesting.
Well,
All right,
thanks for having me.
thanks for
Thanks,
coming
Dan.
in. And I dropped that thing off at the meeting house, the little timer.
Thanks,
Put it in
Don.
the screenplay. All right, very
Nice
good,
to
thank
see
you.
you all.
All right.
Thanks, Dan. Good seeing you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks,
Bye.
Dan.
Take care.
All right, very good. And Guy did mention the dues, which we have that number, which when we talk about budget, we can do that as well. All right, so the leases on hold, town meeting. The next items of discussion here. We received today an email from David Parker Jr. that he is resigning as a town, after 17 years as our town meeting moderator. He will not be running for the position in 2022. So, I shared the email with everyone, and so we want to talk a little bit about having the in-person town meeting on Monday, February 28th at 6 p.m. in the multi-purpose room versus an Australian ballot vote with the Zoom informational meeting that would precede it, which was done in town meeting 2021. Yes. Yes, you
Can I
can.
suggest a starting point to this, which is to clarify, to make sure everybody is on the same page, that currently we have no choice
But
but to have a physical in-person town meeting.
Correct.
We do not, the temporary ability that the legislature gave town select boards to vote to have an Australian ballot has expired. So we do not have the ability to change to an Australian ballot without warning a special town meeting and having a special town meeting, which would have to be physically in person, since there's no way around that currently. We would have to have a physical town meeting in order to get people to vote to not have a physical town meeting, basically.
Unless we wait until.
Well, I mean, the legislature is not in session again until January 4th, so that's not gonna change. That situation is not gonna change for now. Personally, I strongly suspect that when they come back, the first thing they will do is pass legislation like they did earlier this year or last year that would give us the ability as a select board to vote to do town meeting by Australian ballot again for another year, but we don't know if that's gonna happen. So, I mean, in a way, I'm not sure there's a heck of a lot for us to discuss.
No, there is not, may not be a lot for us to discuss. However, if we do have a town meeting, one of the things I noticed in Newfane was very upset. They just had a meeting about buying the gravel pit, was that they did not put in their warning that masks were required. And so many people who went to the meeting and saw that some people were unmasked, they did not go in to vote because they didn't want to be in a room. So if we decide to do it in person, we must make sure, please remind, we must make sure that we put that masking as a requirement for Brookline
Now,
meeting if we're
Yeah,
in there.
and maybe Bruce has the same question I'm gonna have, and I think this might be
I
something
don't have
that
a
we,
question, I just have a statement. I see.
can I ask a question first? Then I'm gonna ask
Sure.
Guy.
Right.
I think it would be useful for us to know whether we as a select board have the ability to mandate masks at a town meeting if we have not voted to institute an indoor mask mandate in our town.
Good question.
Right now, at this
That's
point,
interesting.
the town has the authority to
Do
mandate
they,
mask wearing or not.
like, the
Yes.
town of Brattleboro, et cetera?
Because that's what Governor Scott did, he's.
Right, but that's not what I'm asking.
Oh,
So
okay.
we have the ability, I know we have the ability to institute a mask mandate in our town, which would apply to
Any meeting.
any meeting that's indoors, not just town meeting. So what I'm asking
I see
is,
that letter now.
if we decide not to do that, which I don't think at the moment there's any real groundswell for us to institute a townwide mask mandate, is there any reason that we can't merely on the warning for town meeting, for that specific meeting, say that we're requiring masks to attend it?
Ask the Secretary of State.
I think that's a question that has to be asked, because I don't think it's a slam dunk that the answer is
I'll run it
yes.
past the Secretary of State
Thank you.
and see if we can get
I mean, there's,
a
But
definite.
still. But still.
I mean, I just think we should be prepared for that, because I agree with you that under any circumstances that I can envision, if we end up with a physical meeting, we should mandate masks. And I just think we need to make sure that we have our,
Seating set up, no food, I'm thinking,
and that we're prepared, yeah,
no, yeah, only.
and that it's enforceable.
That's another issue in and of itself. When I went into W&W this morning, they had a sign on the door, mask required.
Oh, they do
I-
now?
Oh, in a lot of stores they do.
I went in
Yeah,
and
they
there
do right,
was
bro.
only two of us in the store that had a mask on.
Just-
Even the
but
employees did not.
The bottom line to that,
Unenforced.
it's unenforceable, that's the issue.
Well, the
And
government,
so you'll see people in stores that are not wearing masks.
well, this is why the government
Right,
did
but
it,
it's
because
time, yeah.
he didn't want
Town
to,
meeting.
And
issue another
Shanghai
state of
Police.
alarm
Right,
in the state, that's why the
So-
governor did it. So he wouldn't have to do another, what do you call it?
Emergency.
Emergency.
But I
State
think,
emergency.
I just wanna make a point. Everything you all been talking about is really valid, but I've had a real problem with this for the last 6 weeks. And what I'm pointing to is I don't like town. I remember going back, I'm not gonna go on and on, 40 years ago, we had at the church, and had a good time, and food, da 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 da. Reality's here, guys, and I think this man, David Parker, hit the nail right on the head when he said, as such, during the pandemic, I have tried to be smart about the situations in which I place myself. Spending 3 to 4 hours in close proximity with numerous others, some of whom may very well be vaccinated, in the basement of Susie's Little Peanuts would not qualify as a smart decision for me personally. I concur with that, and where I sit with it, if we're in the state of affairs that we are now, then on February 29th, or 28th, whatever, I won't be in there. That's just the way it is. So in as much as anybody has a right to do anything they want to please, but if we're in the situation that we are right now in the state, with cases going through the freaking roof, with people not taking care of themselves, with the highest non-vaccination in the state, and we have the highest rates in the country for vaccination.
94%.
Yep, but it's a problem with the unvaccinated, and it's from 18 to 28, I believe this is the range that people are not getting vaccinated. I guess to end up with this, Patty and I have taken this very seriously since day one. And thank Jesus, we haven't had a sniffle in almost 2 years. And I plan on trying to keep it that way. And this is accurate. In my opinion, David knows what he's talking about.
You're here, I hear what you're saying, and the mask rule, if you can find that from the state attorney general about that, but my other concern is where do they grow moderators in case?
Yeah, really.
How do we make one?
Well, that's before that was David Parker. I thought David Parker was.
I asked
They don't
David,
grow them.
they don't grow them. I don't know anybody else, and I asked David, and he said he didn't know at this time, but it's just another concern. Yes, sir.
I think Brattleboro has announced in the paper that their moderator is retiring as
Yes.
well.
Really?
Yeah, so they, I think via that article indicated that they're looking for a moderator or someone to give thought to serving as a moderator. I'm wondering if we could use the Livorno service of advisement of the public,
The listserv.
to listserv, I'm sorry, listserv, could, thank you.
And the front porch forum,
Yeah, to let people know that, you know, there is a
Well,
resignation of moderator.
I know to stop,
It's open.
squinting because we've done this before and never, ever get any.
well, you gotta try.
response.
I know, but at least we try. That's,
Yeah, and they gotta
that's,
know Robert's Rules of Order,
that's right.
and that's for,
And they have to be a resident.
and they have to be, we can't go to Deb Luskin or Kim Friedman or somebody out of
Brookline.
Brookline.
Okay, that was my other question, is can you appoint someone who's not a resident
I don't
if
think
we don't
so.
have someone to elect?
That's a
question.
I'll ask the,
Secretary of State.
That's
Secretary of
considered,
State.
that's
well,
considered.
can you
a town
just write
appointed
those two
position,
things down?
right, guy?
Please.
That's considered a town appointed position. So, yeah.
I don't know
No,
how
it's
the
elected.
moderator
It's
is
elected.
elected.
Elected by- Yes,
You
it
elect
is.
from the floor.
Yes, it goes from the floor.
Because to have the meeting, you have to have a moderator. So that's kind of a catch-22.
You think?
Yeah, so I'll check with the Secretary of State, see what arrangements they
They probably just had the question.
think, that, you know, that can happen. I don't know, it's pure speculation at this point.
Alright, well, we'll move on from here, but it was a good little discussion about, I
Yep.
think, the front porch forum and the listserv would be valid points to put that out there. And also to thank, yeah, and also to thank David for 17 years of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, between David and Samara, I feel like I've not really thanked them. Because since we're all separated and not seeing each other, that with all those years of people making commitments that sort of,
And we can't thank them at town meeting.
yeah. That's what
I just an observation, one of our reasons, if I recall correctly, is that we wanted to go to evenings to allow more people to come.
That's right.
And with this kind of a situation with COVID, I'm wondering if it now becomes a moot issue in terms of getting a volume greater than had been typical in the
It's
past,
still,
given the dilemma.
it still
And maybe
came out at 16%.
in this Australian ballot,
Guys, that
be a
hasn't changed at all.
safer, more
It's still at
considerate way of
16%,
handling
whether we had
us people
a
in the town.
Australian ballot last year or the town meeting in person, the same percentage, 16%.
Exactly.
And that's, you know, it's unfortunate, but that's,
And we were negotiating the idea, Stan, you were here for that, I go think. It came up about Saturdays. And you know who was the biggest person against it? David Parker, because he says it didn't work.
Cause it was tried before.
With the
People don't wanna
size
give
before.
up their Saturdays.
That's
Right.
right.
but you know, the funny thing, even with a big thing like the $450,000 sand pit decision at Newfane, it didn't draw that many people, and that really amazed me. That was a big
I
number.
didn't piss him off
Well,
about
it's a
this.
slam, that's right, they weren't upset about it, it's a slam dunk, they should do it, in the long run to save the town lots of money.
Yep.
So, and they could potentially earn it,
Yeah.
so, it's not a controversy of sorts.
Well, I know, yeah, and that seems the only thing that creates activity at town meetings is something very controversial.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully
We
there's
had-
something to be controversial, we keep going, so.
We had 300 people at the Newbrook, for the area, pumps and the solar panels for
Yeah.
$300,000.
I know.
And then you go to the school district for their meeting in the millions,
And
you
it can
get
be-
4 people,
I know.
not exaggerating.
No, I agree.
Then,
Bill what's his name, Bill Gunther? I guess. And I was the one, he was the one with there, and I think there's maybe one other person.
Well, I can tell you why the apathy is at the educational meetings, because if it fails, they have it again. If it fails, they have it again.
That's all they
And
get.
so, you know, it's like, okay,
Sorry, I did.
All right, yeah, I'm
We're
sorry.
gonna, we're gonna move on.
Yeah, we did.
All right, so next we're gonna move into, budget 2022-23. Pick up where we left off last week, or whenever. It seems like we meet every couple of days.
Thank you for sending it out.
Could I,
Hard work on that.
I have a few things that I would like to add. I've got some hard numbers for in regards to the budget.
Okay.
Let me just get my budget here.
I hope you didn't work all weekend on that, guy.
I did.
Oh my God.
Spending all the time on it.
Thank you.
No, but that's okay. That's what we're here for.
Appreciate it.
Alright.
Let me just get myself together.
May I ask a question
Sure.
that I was gonna, do we have an amount of the cost, I think it was the original cost of the bridge that was redone at the bottom of Putney Mountain? And I'm not sure if the loan that or bond that we floated was $100,000 in value.
200,000,
It was 200,000.
and it's for 20 years.
Okay, so the $100,000 that shows up, was that unspent money?
Correct. So
Okay.
what happened there is that, number one, the bridge didn't bill out the same way they anticipated. And I think there was a grant that came up for it.
Okay,
So that $200,000 became a liability. And as you know, a bond, once you buy a bond, you can't just, pay it off.
mhm,
But I did speak to the people up at the bond bank, Vermont Bond Bank, Michael, who's in charge of it, and he said they're watching it closely. If anything changes, they will let the town know in the event that we can get out from underneath it or whatever, maybe minimize what our interest is. And I have a new figure for the interest, by the way. I spoke with them and that figure is 2890.08 for interest for the period that we're budgeting for.
Okay.
Sorry, so we were gonna go with 3,500, but it's now what?
2890.08, so 2891.
2891.
so as a continuation of that question, is that $100,000 ultimately going to be turned into the town?
The town pays it off in increments of $10,000 a year.
year?
Right now, our balance is $90,000 after this year. Next year it'll be 80,000
Okay, right.
and so
okay,
forth.
all right.
But what it does, it gives us some money to spend on bridges and culverts that we can use that money, but only have to pay it back at $10,000 a year.
But so if our balance is 90.
Yep.
And we've got 100 in the account or
No, we-
fund, right?
Well, right now, we only have 90,000. Because we just made a payment of $10,000
Right,
and we paid the interest of whatever it was, $1,600.
that 10,000 is in our budget every year though. correct?
Yes,
Okay,
because what it does is it's paying down
right,
the loan.
so we're not taking it out of the $100,000 that was left in excess of the 200 we borrowed, correct?
We budget $10,000 a
I
year
know,
to
yeah,
pay down that loan.
right,
So that loan diminishes, that balance diminishes by $10,000 each year.
$200,000 balance.
It started at $200,000 in 2010
Right,
and it ends in 2030.
okay,
So right now, we're at $90,000 left.
right, but what I'm getting at is, we, of the $200,000 that we borrowed, we never used 100, correct? And we're now have on the loan of the 200,000, only $90,000 left to pay.
Right.
Can we, the town, have the use of that $10,000 difference
For,
to add to whatever our expenses might be as a part of an ability to use that $10,000 to cover various expenses?
we spent the.
Well, no, that is an
payment.
expense, that's a liability. The $10,000 is a liability,
Right, but we
But we
collect
have-
taxes.
but in our assets, we're
Right.
showing that we have $90,000. But we keep paying $10,000 off, so
But
the
our balance sheet shows
asset,
100,000.
it's now down to 90. It started at 200,000,
So that's a debt.
yes.
It's a debt, it's not an asset.
Well, it's an asset because we're paying it down,
We didn't spend it all.
right? So what we had left over, and I don't know how much we actually spent on that particular project, but we bonded $200,000
Right,
in 2010.
yeah,
And each year we're paying $10,000 back, plus interest.
okay, I don't wanna take up more time.
No, but it's a hard
There's
thing to
another aspect
understand.
to that that I think we're
It's
we're
almost
dancing
like a
around.
home equity loan.
Well,
Similar-
it just seems our balance is 90, meaning that we've paid back 110,000, correct? Within 11 years?
Yes, over the years,
Okay.
we paid back on 10 plus
Okay.
interest.
Okay, so what you're telling me is the $100,000 balance on the balance sheet that you did this past weekend should be 90,000.
Yes,
Okay,
that just changed just a couple of days ago
okay,
when,
all right,
again, that was up to the fourth period, I believe, which would be June, July, August, September, October. No, I'm sorry, I gave you the fifth period. But the bottom line is, yes, that $10,000 now is not, it's not $100,000, it's now $90,000. That changes on a regular basis.
Let me ask the question, can't we use the unspent money instead of raising taxes to
That's
pay
what I'm
back the
wondering.
loan?
That's what I'm wondering.
We have the
Okay.
ability to use right now $90,000. We can use that.
To pay
No
the,
matter what no matter how we use it, we have to pay $10,000 back a year until 2030.
can we use that
90,000
money to
interest.
pay itself back?
This is 90,000 sitting there.
So why are we
What
calling it
can-
as an expense?
Wait, a minute, what can it be used on? That's good.
Bridges and culverts.
What can't? Us three.
Only bridges and culverts
This
can
should
be
be-
used.
That's, it's a restricted, it's
So
a.
it
That's
can't
right,
be
remember,
used to
that's
pay
right.
itself back, why are we raising tax money?
Right.
For bridges and.
Why are we raising $10,000 in taxes plus interest if the money is not spent and it's in the account? Why don't we just be our own bank and give back the loan?
Well, we
the bond?
can't, okay, we can't pay it off,
No,
because of the
just
bond.
annually,
right.
just give back the 10 grand.
Well,
Yeah,
the
we need
reason,
money.
I guess, it became an asset, it gave us some leverage to have some money to spend if we wanted to. If we wanted to spend out of that $100,000 or $90,000, $30,000 for a culvert, well, guess what? We only have to pay back 10,000 of that. So, do you understand that we're using it as a credit line?
Okay.
I understand, okay.
We have a $90,000 credit line
Wondering if
that we have to pay 10 grand a year for 9 more years, correct?
Yeah,
And we have no choice.
Right. So
Because
we
it's
can use
bond.
$90,000, it's just sitting there and we're paying off the 10,000 a year.
Yes.
We could be using that money.
You can use it. In fact, this year we have used it because we're seeing,
Uh-huh.
we're over $62,000 in excess of what we've collected for
Okay.
income this year.
okay.
Uh-huh.
I think you've now answered
Income.
my question.
What do you mean income?
We have used it,
Wait a
yes.
minute, what do you mean income?
Income is taxes.
Oh,
When, I call income taxes.
okay.
And basically, there's been 2 tax payments made, 2 tax collection periods made.
Right.
And right now, we've spent $62,000 in this year,
Uh-huh.
we've spent $62,000 more than we've collected.
So,
Okay.
one last comment and I'll shut
Mhm.
up.
Generally,
In theory, if the board chose to use the $10,000
no, 90,000.
it's not, yeah, well, a portion of that 90,000, rather than assess in our budget, $10,000 for a repayment amount for that loan.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we be saving the taxpayers that $10,000 amount in raising that as opposed to just?
Well,
keeping
you
it
still
on-
have to
You
make
can't do
that
that.
payment,
Right,
you have to make that payment, you have a
I
liability
see, yeah.
of paying $10,000.
Yeah, I
But
should
you
have
can
got
use
that,
that
sir.
money.
Thank you.
But you can use that money for bridges and roads.
You can use it, yes,
Right.
restricted fund for bridges and culverts.
But then we have to pay it back and raise money.
Right, but like I said, if you replace a culvert at $50,000 and you use that money, you only have to pay back $10,000 this year.
And since we're already budgeting to pay
Yeah.
back that 10,000 each
Sure,
year, it doesn't
yeah.
matter if we
Right.
spend it and use it.
Right.
Because we're already, the next year, we'll just be budgeting for an additional 10,000 to make payment on it.
Yes,
Okay.
But it's
It's something-
restricted, so we can only use it
On
for
bridges
right,
and culverts.
things that, I mean, whether we've used it on culverts, which we've done a lot of work on or not, I guess, is a question, but yeah.
yeah, it can be used for bridges and culverts, that's restricted on it.
Thank you.
And
All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
All
it
right.
is,
It really is. All right, so. I'm not, is there anything else that you wanted to,
all right, yes, and
On
the fund for the bridges, I'm sorry, the money that we get for the roads this year is gonna be $40,081, $61.87. That's for, I don't know, we may have already gone over that. Where's the
I think we had
Put in 39.
put in 39, it is. So sorry, Guy, you're saying it's how much?
It's $40,061.97.
So we could call it 40,000 instead of 39.
Turn it over. I started like this, I turned it over. I got to the last
You
page.
already have the
insurance
on
figures.
page 5.
So that instead of 39 here, it'd be
Okay,
Instead of 39, that would be 40.
okay, as long as I know what's going on. Okay, I'm good.
Guy, do you know when we get paid that money? Like how that works?
It works quarterly. We get a
Okay,
quarterly.
so we do get a quarterly, so whatever, we get 10 grand-ish a quarter.
Yes, yes. So far, we've gotten 22,000, I think,
Back where they are.
this year.
Right.
Yeah, right, 22,
27.
27.
I'm sorry, I'm a little lost where we're at.
Yeah,
I'm
got
sorry.
it. I just.
What page we on?
highway revenues, page 5, highway revenues.
Of the.
I'm having a little too much trouble following the numbers, so I'm going to be rather vague about that in a minute.
I'm
You
sorry.
Yeah, you
Oh, that's.
You don't have to
don't-
copy numbers down, don't copy numbers down, we're doing that.
I apologize, Gina.
We're in discussion.
It's all just discussion.
Discussion.
Yeah, you don't need to try to capture any of this.
Really? No, what did he just say
We
before?
can capture.
Okay, what page are we on?
He said
Page
5, right?
5,
3, 4.
So we've just,
1/3 from the top.
Yep. For expenditures?
Yeah, state aid.
state aid for revenues. Instead of 39,000, we're gonna make it 40,000. Highway fund,
Oh, yep.
Okay, I'm sorry, state aid.
Yeah, that's what's confusing, so it's not anybody highway section.
Okay.
Oh, there it is. Is it how much? 39?
39. Was
Thirty,
it
right.
last year,
39, I was gonna
budget
say 40.
40,000,
40?
6197, around 40,000.
40.
Okay.
All right, we have revenues here. So current taxes, we still can't answer anything on. The state aid, we have an update. Highway grants, we can't answer anything on at this time. The salt sand shed, as far as a revenue, there's nothing that we can answer on that. Permits revenue, we've answered, and interest on investment, we've answered for revenues.
Right.
All right, so we got the revenues done for
For the most part,
for
yeah.
the most part. We're going down, continuing with expenditures. Summer highway salaries we discussed, mileage has been documented. Payroll tax and summer contract services and equipment. Those numbers,
What's that number for summer contract services equipment?
43,000.
43.
What page you on now?
Okay.
it's a 43,000.
Same
okay.
page 5,
Page 5 to slow down under
under
expenditure.
expenditure.
Okay.
And the 4,000 next to it is what we,
That's so the last column in the document that I produced, the very last column in italics is how much that line increased or decreased.
okay,
If there's parentheses around it. And then at the very bottom for each section, it's total of what has, the total of what has
okay,
increased
perfect, thank you.
or decreased, but mostly increased.
Oh, you mean on the very last?
On the very last, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna, 43,000 for the summer contracts and services, highway salt shed. As far as the expenditures, I'm still concerned about not having a line to have a match.
So, I'd suggest that we work through the rest of it, and then I'd like to discuss something I've started to try to put together for
Okay,
the salt
thank you.
sand shed, or grants in general, maybe.
Thank you.
But it might be something that Guy and I need to still collaborate on, but I can talk through what I've started on, but I think we should
Move past it. right?
move past it for the moment.
All right, so then we have the flood contracted services. That amount there came from where, Guy? Do you know?
Which page, you're on page 5?
It's on page
Yes.
5. It's $28,197. It's August 2021 flood.
Okay, those are the funds that have been spent. And what we're doing is we're isolating them so that when FEMA asks us for, what we spent, we can find them. They're in their own separate account.
Are they
And-
commingled anywhere else? Because I don't wanna double.
Okay, there's also another, I thought there was, and there's also flood materials.
Right.
So there's materials and then there's contracted services. So you'll see 39,573 for flood materials, which again is related to the August 29th event. And 28,000 for the contracted service like Archie Clark and Savinsky, what's his name, Zelensky. Yeah, something like that. Zelensky. Yes. And then there's also, there's 3 vendors involved, I believe. Zelensky, AS Clark, and EW Logging. So that's the 3
So
vendors.
those are what you're calling the flood? Although
Yes,
she.
those are flood related expenses.
That's under that 28,000?
28,000 is the vendors
This is the- yeah.
and
39
materials
is
are the materials,
Went along with it.
the gravel, the dirt.
Oh, flood materials, okay.
All right, but so they've been pulled out and they're not being duplicated in the line item.
Right, yeah, we can't,
Okay.
you can't budget that because that's a catastrophic event that
Right,
hopefully.
and then there's an item here, it says highway emergency, what is that? I'm not sure. Did we discuss this?
I mean, it's presumably just another number that didn't get, for whatever reason, they didn't put it into just summer highway or winter highway.
It was something that was non-flood related.
Right, it wasn't this latest event, but maybe it was something else.
Yeah, I'd have to do a detail, I'd have to look at detail.
$1,200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we
Do
don't
you know
really
what that
necessarily.
was for,
The emergency?
I mean, unless we are deciding that we want to budget for another event like the one we just had, we don't really need to worry about those numbers for the purposes of this. In theory, our summer contract services, winter contract services, and our collective materials have hopefully budgeted for normal events,
but
which we kind of have
Yeah.
minor
Here and there.
emergency events all the time that get dealt with. But if it's true, if we want to budget for another event like we had on July 29th or
Well,
whatever, then we need to.
In normal accounting, normally you would take 15% of your budget and have it as a budget stability line item. Which means that in the event, and I've discussed this with Don also, in the event there's something goes upside down, you already have funds appropriated. 15 is ideal, 10% is something that.
Samara kind of brought that up in a different way about 3 years ago.
Okay, but it's really something, and I thoroughly agree with that thinking, because it gives you an opportunity to say, the price of sand, which is so volatile, the price of rock, which is so volatile right now, you budget 29,000, but next year you wind up 35,000. You have that 6,000 already built in, so that you don't have to start borrowing money or changing other things that you wanted to do. So it makes sense. That's something that the select board will have to come to grips with, but that's just a thinking.
Guy brought it up to me, and I did a little research on it, and 49 states, including the District of Columbia, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico, all those states and districts all have a rainy day fund or a budget stabilization fund. The only state that doesn't have it is Colorado, and Colorado has another name for it. But it's money that's collected, it's like surplus money. In years when there is a good, strong budget, then they take money and put it aside for when there is a problem. Now, I don't think we can afford to take any money this year and put it aside, because it's not been a good year, but it is something to consider to do going
That's what
forward.
Solera was talking about.
Yeah, doing 5% 1 year, 5% the next year, and 5% the next year, and then
Build
you
it up.
have that one fund. It'd take a few years to build it up, but then you use it for that
Well,
flexibility.
if-
Like,
And it
I'll
would be a
just say
line
this.
item,
Well, if you
something that
keep-
you would have to, an article that would have to be.
If you
Well,
keep
you
kicking
can
the
take
can
it.
down the road, you're never gonna get anywhere. This is the time that you have to really be hard about the budget and be realistic. These events are gonna happen, it seems, on not a regular basis, but more often than we really wish to admit. And if we don't have some sort of a stabilization in there, we're gonna wind up getting in trouble, because just for this FEMA, which we're gonna be probably bottom out at 140,000, we're gonna be responsible for 12%. So that's, another $18,000 that we have to come up with that we did not have budgeted at all.
Right.
It was only 3 or 4 years ago that we had all that rain in August that was the same problem.
Yeah, we were lucky with Irene, but, we had FEMA,
Yeah,
but
it was a long
this
time.
was almost worse than Irene.
Aren't we glad we're not Mayfield, Kentucky?
Oh,
That's-
absolutely. Well,
Glad
that's
that
just,
was-
I don't even, that's just so sad.
All right, well,
Yeah.
we can move along just to see where we're at here, but that is a concern that I have, whether it be, we'll wait till what David here, what he was working on, maybe that will help me handle that iffiness that I feel. All right, so we went through the flood materials, we don't have to budget for the highway emergency. Now, winter salaries, we've already said that we're going to be dropping that because it will just be highway salaries. Winter payroll taxes, again, it's just going to be conglomerated with the other salaries. Winter contract services, that should be
Plowing.
the plowing and sanding of our roads, the plowing and salting. The
Yeah,
plowing and salting of the roads
The artist,
by the
contract.
contractor that we have, and that is 33,000, and we did increase that because we did. Commissioner thought that it was going to be going up. Winter materials,
It's 737 on this year. You're talking more for,
37,000 for next year.
yeah, okay.
And then winter materials, did we not change? Oh, yeah, what from?
Oh,
we
so-
had
didn't
to-
change it.
No, we didn't change it, 20.
The feedback that you gave from Archie was that
That
it
was
was
all right.
probably okay.
That was correct, okay.
So we left it.
All right, sand check, these have all been done down here to paving grant and Parker Road grant. Again, we don't,
Which again are just
Grant expenses.
expense line items for things that had not been budgeted. But again, things that historically have never been budgeted for grants like that.
all right, so that's the highway, setup. Did you want, go ahead.
For the fact that, I don't know, I thank God there are people here like yourself and David and you and Glenn that remember things from the past, but for those insurance reduction items that you found out they're giving us a credit, is anyone of a mind to maybe footnote that somewhere along the line, so that when we're reviewing this next year, we'll have a cue that they're not that normally that low.
Right, it's gonna be a one
One
time reduction. But again, the insurance again is so volatile because it's based on actuaries, and who knows what's gonna happen.
So no need for any further, so just that would be helpful.
I mean, you can, but I think it's, I don't think people would understand it, they may anticipate that it's gonna happen every year. There's a lot of different things, I don't think it's necessary, but that's entirely up to you.
I wanna clarify one thing. Winter materials, on the very bottom page, second to last page, to $21,000. That is
Sand and salt.
sand and stone,
Salt.
sand and salt.
Sand and salt.
Which page you
It's
on?
not gravel. It's not road gravel, because that is now, again, this is all based on the discussion you had with Archie and then communicated to us.
The reason why I'm saying it only,
Was that we've greatly increased the material for summer material, because gravel, road gravel, ditch stone, stuff like that is conceptually summer material, even though it might get applied in January because of some event.
we're gonna
It's
run
not, it's not winter material. Winter material for our purposes is only going to
Sand
be
and salt.
sand and salt.
well, then we're running into a problem tonight's accounts payable because gravel that's been delivered is being listed as winter material, rock delivery for,
Right, I mean, keep in mind, this
Yeah.
budget that we're talking about, all of this changing that we're doing about the allocation of these things and where it's going isn't going to take effect until July 1st, 2022.
right,
Separate to this, and I'll say, in addition to all the changing of doing away with summer highway salaries
right.
and winter, all of that is going to also have to involve a serious discussion with the treasurers about how they go about classifying
that much information.
things that come in and bills when they get paid. Separate to what we're, after we've decided this, they then have to be brought into the loop, and it has to be explained to them, okay, this is how we now want you to classify things that you used to classify a different way.
I'm just gonna say, when we look at tonight's bills, all the stuff says winter materials and it's not sand, it's not salt.
Right, and I said this last time, historically, I mean, I understand now that we want to decide that winter materials is only salt and sand, but that was never the case previously.
Okay.
I
Well, it
mean,
wasn't.
if somebody, well, because I mean, quite frankly, if something happens during the winter and we have to buy gravel
Right,
to remedy it,
Materials.
I'd argue it's a pretty subjective decision to decide that's no longer a winter material, it's a summer material. I understand why we want to do that, and it will make budgeting much more straightforward, but it isn't necessarily
Okay.
an obvious thing that somebody would have known, and the treasurers would never have known that.
Right.
Nor would the select board, because it was never like that until now, so it's a change that they need to be made.
I think initially they were trying to achieve transparency,
Right.
and I think it's gotten a little bit too much now. I think we, in my opinion, it would be easy to put it in as materials because it's for the town, whether you use it in spring, summer, fall,
Really?
it doesn't matter.
Right, that's what I'm saying, it should be materials and then have the other
Salary
thing,
should be
plowing
salaries.
and sanding.
Yeah, correct, exactly, yep.
Right, okay,
So materials were determined by the time of year it's used, whereas now it's what's it used for? Is it
Right.
topical surface used or is it road based?
Treatment of roads, kind of,
Right.
essentially,
Right.
I mean, it's really road treatment materials.
Question.
yes,
Are
sir,
the accounts that are maintained by the treasurer's office such that under the heading of materials, highway materials,
Mhm.
there's another level of refinement that indicates salt, sand? Are those?
I don't know if
those
there's a
exist?
subset for that, I don't know,
Okay,
without looking at it, but it is my understanding that some of if you look at the invoice, they normally put down where that account is, where that's been billed to what account,
Mhm.
and if it says summer or winter materials, that's where it went.
okay,
I don't know if there's a subset,
all right.
for, that isolates salt versus sand.
Yeah, I remember when I first came on way back when.
Yep.
There was a discussion about breaking it out to summer and winter. Cause the members at that time felt there was a need to do that. And we were kind of being new
Going back.
people, different opinions and so
Yeah, well,
on.
certainly,
Going
because I
back
think after
It
a
sounds
while,
simpler to do it this way.
it is, and the bottom line is, we need the material all year. Does that mean that we can only use it for January and February,
Yeah, right.
It's there, it's in a pile, and you go get it.
Sorry to take your time, yeah.
Yeah.
right, so let's see what gaps do we see here in the
So the two big gaps that still exist that I'm aware of are landfill fees
Oh,
for the
I
Wind
have.
Solid Waste Management District.
I got that fee number, it's, 3408.
Whoa. I thought it was
3408.
Something 3488, I think.
Is it
3488?
3387?
Exactly the same as last year.
No, it's 3488.
Okay. Okay.
I just saw it.
3488.
Yep, that's
So the
where,
same as last year and the year before.
Actually,
what is
it
that?
says here, Brookline's assessment for fiscal year 2023 for its membership in the solid waste is actually going down about $100.
Yep.
Yeah, 3388, we'll call it.
3388,
3388.
right, it's gone down $100.
So that's-
I know.
It is page 3. Page 3.
And then we got our favorite subject.
And then the recycling collection.
Right, so a thing to note about recycling collection is that that's not something that's going to appear, strictly speaking, in the budget. It won't be part of the rolled up budget number that we.
Is that gonna be a separate article?
Because it's well, I guess,
I think
I guess it's worth noting, it doesn't have to be a separate article. We could roll it into the budget and have it be part of the budget. We've not done that previously, I don't think we should, but we're not under any obligation to warn it as a separate article if we chose not to.
We're just.
We always have though,
We're just doing it because of
and
the size of the budget, the size of that number, and because of
The flexing of whether or not it's a service that the town wants.
yeah, and because it's
Yeah.
reasonable to think at some point, people might not want to spend that money on it.
Right.
Exactly.
And it's, and from the very beginning, I think, from the very beginning, it has always been warned as a separate article.
Right.
last 2 years, that's.
So,
Right.
and I think it has, I think it always
We
has.
have been, we
I think
didn't always,
from the moment it began, it's always been a separate
Right.
article, so.
just because we were never sure if we were gonna stick with it.
Uh-huh.
Something that-
And I think we should continue to, but it's just worth noting, we don't have to do that if for some reason we choose
Well, I
not to.
think we should, because then it's up to the town, yes or no.
Yep.
Right.
So moving, along those lines, there was a budgeted amount of $27,000 last year. Shall we carry that number forward?
It won't be in the budget, numbers, it'll be separate.
Well, it
Well,
will be in
we-
your budget, but when
we
we
do
go
need-
to when we go to set the tax rate, you'll add what you approve for the budget, the appropriations, and any articles
Yes.
that need to be voted in.
And we do need to figure it out. We do need to figure out what number we're going to warn sooner or later,
okay.
so.
And how do we figure that out other than
Well, I mean, the way we've done it
just
in the
calculating?
past
Counting
was calculate what our costs had been
To that
as of
point.
whatever we know.
Doubling.
Extrapolate that, make an assumption that numbers are going up. However, something I'll mention is at least the last few pay warrants that I've looked at,
It's
the
going
AP
down.
warrants, it's been going down.
The tonnage.
The tonnage, the rate that we pay for processing
Oh,
it
yeah?
has gone down.
Considerably.
Now,
Really?
I don't know, and I don't know if that's the kind of thing that, I mean, unfortunately, Dan's not on call anymore, whether Dan or anybody at the district has a sense of whether that's something that we could expect to be the case.
Well, but Wyndham
but-
Solid Waste they don't handle our recycling.
They don't handle our recycling, however, all the recycling that people take there, they pay Triple T, the same vendor we use to process that, and they're much more in tune with the fluctuation of, because they buy and sell recycled material on some level, so they're
Yeah.
and it's what they do for a business, so they're more in touch with the fluctuations potentially than we would be, of course.
And this amount, $5,051, is for the first 4 months?
4 months, correct.
5, 10,
1/3.
20.
It's 1/3 of the year.
15,000.
Yeah, if everything goes the way it is,
That's
but
different.
well, you have peaks and valleys, and again, because I think we're watching it more carefully, I'm calling to have the truck, I'm trying to gauge when we can get a truck in there. The price of trucking went from 132 to 142 to 152, so we have to pay that. And then the volatility in the stuff that's in the bins, that's the thing that drives us a little crazy. I've seen it go down as low as 63, and I've seen it as much as $135. So, you know,
Depends on what's in
it's,
it.
yeah.
So a 22,000 be a good guess?
Yeah, I think, to me, it's gonna be closer to 22 than it will be to 27.
Yeah. Sounds a little.
But did you build anything else into that figure last year?
$1,000 for fencing.
Yeah, I think we had guesstimated at 26 and then we built in $1,000 to potentially, you know, put cameras up,
Yeah.
shoot cameras or something.
So we should stick it to 2022 or whatever you're thinking. How about it?
Well, you know, okay, do you wanna, what's the pleasure of the board for this amount? Do you wanna go back to the previous amount?
I mean, I'll say
Or-
I guess I wish I had, I don't personally have a huge amount of confidence that 5051 is really 4 months.
Well, what in your pay warrant, do you have a figure there? Cause you know, we're always a couple $100 behind.
You know, but even if it's 3 months, that still works out to 20.
Right.
Yes, and I would say 22 is like a buffer.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Brattleboro
22 seems-
salvage, recycling, 6048, and then 4725. Those are the two invoices.
All right,
And
so basically, if you stayed at 22 and in this year, and again, this is just my thinking, this year, what we have already an increase of $77,000 in the highway budget. I think it might be prudent for us to go, or for you to go toward the lower side, rather than really anticipate spending 27, maybe 22, 23.
Can I
You know,
see the?
I mean, I don't know, Dave, you've done you've worked with the solid waste management group, so you might have a better feeling for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't anymore though, so I wouldn't even.
two.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, the rate here on the is $63 a ton,
Yeah,
which is
that's probably the lowest.
considerably is the lowest it's been in a long, long
Yeah.
time. I don't know what that means.
So let's drop the number.
So I don't know if that's something that
Well, I
we
don't
can
know
expect
if
to
we really need
continue or
to
not.
drop it.
What's that?
I don't really know if we need to,
At 27?
drop it from the 27.
Yeah.
Okay.
22, see, like to Sam's point, 22 and guys, 22 or something like that seems probably like
Yeah,
A little better.
giving us a buffer, but still not, you know, being lower than it has been, acknowledging that it appears, at least for the time being, that the costs are somewhat lower.
All right, so let's put in $22,000 for the recycling collection for the budgetary item, 22,000.
Okay, so worth noting that that number is not going to factor into the overall total.
Correct.
It's just a number that we're gonna know that we're gonna use for our warning of that article when we get to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. All right, so I'm looking on this page.
That's it.
I think that's, all right, David, you wanted to talk a little bit about something that you were working on with
Well, So I started to try to throw some stuff together and I haven't gotten super far with it, but Guy, maybe this overlaps slightly with things you were thinking about doing, but I was looking at conceptually, it seems to me that, you know, we know from the numbers Guy has pulled that at the moment, our non-restricted highway fund balance is something in the range of $59,000, probably.
43
43 plus the 15.
Yep.
So.
That's up to this collection.
Up to this collection. So in a way, I thought an exercise that would be useful would be to say, okay, that's how much I mean, it's no different than if you're trying to create a budget for your own checking account or whatever.
Yep.
We know that's how much money we have that is available in an unrestricted way right now
In the highway.
in the highway fund.
Right.
How much more money do we have coming in to that fund between now and the end of this fiscal year?
Well, plus versus expenditures.
Right, exactly. So that, yes, that's what I'm getting to. So what we know we have coming in is essentially, I think, really only two things. Tax revenue, which is essentially half of the highway portion of the tax revenue, because we've already had we've baked into this number already is the first two tax bill payments. So we have two more tax payments coming to us. And then we also have whatever remains of state aid that we have not yet gotten, which is
Maybe 20,000.
maybe 20,000. I think I put in 18 just as. So if we add that money to the balance that we currently have, and then we take out our estimates of what our expenditures will be
Oh,
between now and the end of the fiscal year, which is a big lots of guessing.
Oh, yeah,
It's not an easy
it's not
numbers to come
scientific at all.
up with. We could then approximate how much essentially real unrestricted money we have in that fund.
So let's put it together like
To be able,
94,000.
so let's just hypothetically say if we went through this exercise and we find that we're confident that after all of that is said and done, we have $200,000 in the account, then perhaps our concern about being able to float money for grants for periods of time is not that great.
right.
Or if we do like I've tried to do, and again, the numbers are, we can talk through the validity of the numbers. So
Come up with a bottom line, though. We were at 94 if I was adding right, plus the minus.
well, so let me just talk this through and I'll be very quick about it. So, and we don't have to get the numbers correct. And Peter, please don't even attempt to keep track of these numbers.
Just
okay?
discussion.
It's just for discussion. So our non-restricted balance right now is 58,960. Okay, we have, I think, probably something like $78,800 in tax revenue still to come in, and 18,000 in state aid revenue to still come in. That's about $97,000 collectively. Okay. Added to the 58,960.
Right.
Coming out of that, expenditures that we know we have we paid a first quarter of plowing yet?
We paid some, we've had,
I think
It's
Archie
been-
bills that quarterly.
Yeah.
Okay, that was one thing that I wasn't
right.
Monthly.
clear.
Yes, I saw him.
Yeah, I thought it was monthly and I thought
Oh,
it was
$100,000.
$100,000.
I thought he did it in quarters.
No,
I saw
8,000
8,000
something in quarters.
no, not quarters,
I think
you
it's
say
mo-
December, January, February, March.
Yeah.
Kind of, that's
Yeah.
right, something like
He
that.
doesn't bill it in okay,
I
so,
had the contract, but I handed it back in, I don't have it with me anymore.
okay, is it safe for me to assume that he's probably only billed us once so far for that? I'm gonna guess that.
I've seen the
For
thing.
the sake of argument, I'm gonna say that we've only paid one of those. so
Yeah,
far.
I've only seen one that I
Okay,
can remember.
so then I'm gonna say that we still have about $24,900 to pay in plow. We have virtually all of our winter materials still to pay for, so let's say, and again, it's also, let's assume that our winter materials this winter are going to be what we budgeted for next year, not what we might have budgeted for this year,
Okay.
okay?
Which is more.
Which is more, which is $21,000. Well, actually, no, I guess that is the same that we budgeted. So 21,000 we have in expenses, we have prorated Mark's salaries and our highway salaries for the remaining 7 months of the year, which I'm gonna call $31,000. And we have prorated contract services, and this is a big guessy kind of thing. But I don't think it's unreasonable to think if we're budgeting $39,000 and it's the new number that I'm talking about, the number that we're talking about for the future, which is to be ultra conservative about what our cost is, right? So I think the smart approach to this is that we're conservative on how much money we might have coming in, and
Yes.
we're conservative in the other direction on how much we might have to pay.
Okay.
Right? I'm gonna call that contract services money $25,000
That we still have to,
that we still have to pay.
Yep.
And I don't think we've paid any of the insurance, so all of the insurance. And that's just as far as I've gotten at this point.
well, we also have to put $30,000 in the paving fund.
That's true.
We've budgeted $30,000 for the paving fund.
But
That comes out of our
that
tax
comes out
revenue.
of the tax revenue. And that's a dedicated fund.
I don't, is it dedicated?
I think so.
I don't know, I don't know, but the bottom line is that,
We
if
can
it
put
is.
money into a paving fund, yes.
Right,
But
good,
I don't know.
okay, for Jesus, for goodness
Yeah,
sake.
right now we have nothing in there. You know, whatever we have in the $43,000 or $50,000 is what we have left to fund the highway account. So that's the money we have left plus the restricted.
Okay, but so I guess that's where I get to my point of, that's as far as I've gotten in my
Okay.
calculating. And based on that, and we know that there are definitely other expenses. Most of them probably smaller and not necessarily huge ones, but other expenses that aren't factored into this yet. Best case scenario, that brings us to less than $50,000 in
That,
actual like liquid money. Now, one thing to note is, as Guy showed us on the reports, we still do have $8,000 in that restricted
I thought we
salt
moved
sand shed fund.
to move, I thought we voted to move that to the salt
I
sand
thought
shed.
that was something at the town meeting that we did 2 years ago.
We did it,
Uh,
we did it.
I'm just going based on the
Yeah.
report.
Okay, yeah.
We reappointed it toward the salt sand
Right,
shed,
so,
put it toward.
right,
Right, I
we took
remember
it out
that.
of its a dedicated
Thank you.
fund.
That may be an error in there, I don't know, but.
Well, in any event, I mean,
Yeah.
presumably there is that
Okay.
$8,000, and that is money that will go towards this project.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
And the other thing is that we still have that $79,000 from ARPA that,
That's
again,
true.
that's,
We don't know what we're doing with
That
that.
has
yeah,
nothing to do
but-
with highways though. They can't be used for highways.
I don't, there's, I've been looking at, I'm getting
Not the
emails,
money we have.
what people are spending that money on, and I haven't been in that loop. But the bottom line is we have $79,000 in there, so there's ways that you can work around. You know,
I know, I get you, Rob Peter, to pay full approach, but we have still gotta get it cleared with the LCT as to whether we can do it or not.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
We're opening up a can of worms. This is a little different than getting a grant where you apply for it first and you fill all the specifications and you get your money and you just make sure you do that. This is different. This is, they're giving you
All right,
money
well, the bottom
Right.
line is the town has $79,000 in its checking account.
this year,
Yes,
double next year.
yeah.
Well, the other thing to note is that, when we get reimbursed for the FEMA stuff, we have better than 75% of the money that we've spent on that coming back to
We
us.
should
Am I
be
right about that?
ultimately be responsible for about 12%.
Right.
Unfortunately, I wanna make this point. The FEMA rates are not the same rates that AS Clark and Sons have charged us. The FEMA rates are pretty low. We did not get billed FEMA rates.
Those
We got
FEMA rates
billed-
are 2019 rates.
Yeah, we're gonna get reimbursed based upon the
Based on their rate.
2019
Okay.
FEMA rates.
Okay.
Not the current rates?
Not,
Oh my
Okay.
that's
Well, let's-
that's a problem,
yeah, I
so
God.
it's gonna, it's
Ooh.
difference.
Okay.
No government.
How much, well, let me just ask, so how much have we spent that we think we are going to be able to put in for reimbursement?
Right now, we're at 87,000,
Right
right?
now.
How much?
Yes,
87,
yeah,
87,000.
87,000, tomorrow we're meeting again, and we're gonna look at some more details on the culvert
Okay.
road.
And that's money that we have literally spent at this point.
We
Correct.
spent it.
We no longer have.
We don't have.
So I'm just saying, even under a worst case scenario where we find we only end up getting 50% of our money back, we're still talking about
40, 50,000.
$50,000 that comes back to us.
Oh, Dave, I wish you could look at it.
Really?
Plus, yeah.
And my point really being is that, you know, with grants like the salt sand shed grant, the main one, I think probably all of them, but certainly the main original grants, we will have the ability to submit for reimbursement as the project is somewhat going on.
Okay.
We're not going to have to, I mean, as long as we keep up on things, we're not gonna have to be out our entire $75,000 and then wait for one big check to come back to us for that $75,000.
You can go to.
We're going to be paying,
3 or 4 times, right?
yeah, I think they've even relaxed that. I think there's even more
I don't
opportunity for that.
understand that.
But we still have to pay a matching grant for the salt shed, which you said it looked like it was gonna come out to, instead of 47,000, $75,000.
Right.
Okay,
Right, but I'm just saying from a cash flow standpoint, we are going to be. Yeah, anyway, right. I mean, this is an incomplete exercise, but personally, I feel like we've seen enough of it to know that we should budget something to help us cover and just as a safety net to make sure we don't get to the end of the fiscal year with no money.
Do you think that they 5% budget stabilization would to start off with?
I mean, I guess I don't, yeah, I mean, if we're, I mean, and is that, I mean, I just don't know that I necessarily understand the specifics of that idea. But is that something that would be across the entire
Budget,
highway budget
Whole
or
budget.
entire whole
whole
budget?
budget.
Now, we just cut the budget $5,000 from the dumpster, so there's 5 right there.
but we're still 77 above what we spent last year. So now you're down to 72,000.
Well, and remember, I mean, if we're talking,
I'll send this all to
I
you.
mean, if you're talking about even 5%, I mean, that's,
What did we budget last year? 153,
About $12,000-$13,000, right?
well, and 196 was just the highway.
That's
And
250 or 270.
reparations are.
so it's 15 grand.
Yeah, I mean, 5% is upwards of 20 grand, I think.
How much, huh?
If it's going across the entire budget.
Which is what it should be. It's a budget statement.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I'm not saying that to
Yeah.
argue against it, I'm just saying.
Right.
And so. And do we think that would be the kind of thing that we would warrant as a separate article? To establish it?
We can do
Is
it
that how
that
that
way, we
would work?
can set it up as an article,
Well, keeps it from being hidden. which is kind of-
or we can
It's a lot
do
of
it
money.
as a select board, just put it in the budget. If we are concerned, then we should just put it in the budget versus having the chance of having it voted down because it is new. I think that we get elected to, our fiduciary responsibility as elected officials here would be to protect the budget. I don't really wanna make it,
Choice,
it's not the same thing as a recycling.
you're right.
Yeah, right, there's a true
She's
consequence if you
accurate.
screw up.
This is to protect the town.
Yeah,
And you don't have to do it every year, and you have this, and you can do a 1%, you can add to it as time goes on, you don't have to do it all at once either. But I do think we need to have some kind of push in there.
Yeah, well,
I
Samara was
like
talking
that
about this
idea.
3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think, and if you do 5 or 8% each year, in 3 years, you will achieve that cushion that you need to have on a regular basis. And that, if you wanna
I
add to it,
think
you
it's
can.
like Stan says, it's kind of like when you do your own budget at home, you have an emergency budget
Yeah.
amount that you put in every month.
Right, so
Yeah,
you're not
Emergency?
tapping into your investments or something.
no, and the issue, some of the issues I have, and I'm certainly one for transparency, because what we've done in the last 10 years is totally different than where we were 10 years ago. But there's certain things that when you try to explain to people, they don't understand it. And it's not that they're dumb or anything, but they don't realize the big picture. That we're trying to keep from having to borrow money in the event that something goes upside down or there's a catastrophic event. We have to borrow less money, because when you borrow money, it costs money. So
And you have to go
it's
for it,
a practice that's used in all towns as a rule.
What's the
We
matter?
have to get into the 21st century. Our town is a small town, it's always been tight knit, and people, I understand, didn't have a great deal of money, they didn't wanna spend money, but we have to deal with what the reality is.
When we were having the issues with Cornish and it was coming to the tail end, that's when Samara came up with, you all might start thinking about having a reserve fund. Because we were scrambling because of all that money. that was
Right, yeah,
going
well,
It can be
out.
called
Okay.
rainy day, budget reserve, budget stabilization,
Anything.
anywhere from 5 to 15%. And you usually do it, get it started, and if you're having a good year, you have a surplus, and that would get rolled into that instead of returning it necessarily until we
Right,
have a
right.
cushion. But I did send you all the link that I researched.
Okay,
so if I can just recap to make sure I understand something. We had a number of 155,760 as what, I forget what that total represented. And then $800 for the sand salt shed, which totaled 163,000. And then looking at expenses, we got the winter work, 24,000, winter materials, 21,000. Accounting for salaries to be paid, 31,000. Other contract services of 25,000, and those total 101,000. And then we brought up $30,000 for the paving fund.
Yeah.
And if you take the total of those, 131,000, from the first total of 163 of the 155,700 and the 8,000, we end up with about $32,000
and the plus.
in the plus. Is that what the number we were talking about?
I thought it was 50-ish or something.
Well, that's why I'm bringing it up, because it seems different than the number I'm getting here.
Uh-huh.
Not that anyone's wrong, but just
Yeah,
what
Yeah,
it's
it's
saying.
pure speculation at this point.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But
Yeah, it is, yeah, it is
Speculation.
pure speculation and incomplete probably as well.
So,
the bottom line is that we're hoping that FEMA will reimburse us before June 30th. And it is a strong possibility that they will. But if not, then it'll have to, carry on to next year, but that's just the way it is.
As an aside, when will FEMA or whoever's gonna give us that 2019 factor of reimbursement, when will they state that number?
that's what we're working on right now.
Yep.
That is, yeah, it's, tomorrow we're gonna talk about the culverts, but, yeah. So,
Okay, so-
we have to have our data in by January 10th or 11th.
11th.
And then we have 18 months to finish the repairs. We don't have that much to finish per se compared to other towns. And I think what we'll ask Mel tomorrow.
Yeah.
He said 6 months maybe. And
Yeah,
we're
he
already
seemed to
into it a
think-
couple of months, we're already in a couple of months.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've been working it.
He seemed to be comfortable that we would have it this fiscal year.
Oh, wow.
You know, but again, everything is
Yeah.
subject, you know, who knows what's going on down in Kentucky, if that's gonna pull
Yeah.
a lot of energy that way, you know, you don't know. But it's fair to assume that he felt pretty comfortable that it would be done this fiscal year.
That's comfortable.
So,
All right, so let's go back to what David was saying, and how do we? I would like to see us put in a line item for that stabilization, and we look at.
We're in such a tenuous situation because we don't know what's gonna happen with these events that we've been getting. You know, we had this for July 29th. And Hurricane Sandy, we had Hurricane.
well, you know my feeling about kicking the can down the road.
Oh.
Sooner or later, you're gonna have to bite the bullet, and the sooner you do it, it's like a car payment. At first couple of payments you hate, but by the 15th or 18th payment, you're kind of used to it.
Yeah.
There's gonna be the initial shock,
And
yes.
then you celebrate when it's paid off.
But this year, this year,
That's the next one.
this year, I think our budget is gonna be as high as it's ever been. But by the same token, we're dealing with inflation, we're dealing with volatile prices, so many different factors. This would be the time to say, okay, let's just lay it all out this year and get it over with. And say, this is what we have, this is the new norm.
Yeah, wow.
By the same token, I get a little concerned with appropriations. Because we've gone from 6,000 to 9,000. So there's a lot of ways that you can carve out the budget to make it less painful.
Well, are you going to, considering the expense increases that we're talking about, are you gonna make it less painful by taking $1,000 off appropriations? Or $1,000 in, we're talking pretty mega numbers here.
Okay, but everything
Nothing
adds up,
disagreeing.
everything adds up. You have an increase of 77,000, maybe now 70,000. So the bottom line, if you can pull 2 or 3,000 here, 2 or 3,000 there, it all comes out in
We
the
just
wash.
took 5 from the recycle bin.
Yep,
I
So-
think we need to make a list of what's going up and what we're cutting or what. And how you gonna do that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you have done that, yeah.
yeah.
And
And those are realistic numbers, I mean, we're basing it on a man who's in the industry, Archie Clark knows what he's talking about. We're basing it on what we're getting,
Appropriations the same.
Pretty much, except for the two items. Well, it's slight increase, $970, I think. in increases.
over last year, the last year was a big increase.
And 530.
Cause we had that $1,500 for the, what's the Southern Vermont,
Oh.
Yeah, water.
Sentence or-
Yeah, they-
Right.
okay, but.
All right, I would like to move on, it is almost
Yeah.
8:30,
Okay, very good.
okay?
We can.
So what are we gonna
I'd like to.
do about this
Make a
stabilization thing?
Is that how, no?
No, you were talking, I thought you were on the verge of suggesting
That
adding
adding a budget stabilization line item of up to 5% for this year against our budget. And I say up to 5% only because we are having a high budget anyway, and it's not rainy day funds are usually funded by money that comes during good times. But
No, it's a budget
that's the thing that
You
I'm,
have to call it what is a budget stabilization, and it's subject to,
and you're saying 5%,
roll over.
5% is $20,000?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's, I gotta be honest, we're talking about, there's so many numbers
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
that people are floating around. I mean, I've gone through and done the best I can to try to add these things up, but, you know, there's also at a certain point, we really have to have somebody who's involved in the Treasury Department involved in this.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're making an awful lot of assumptions about changing some accounting things around. And none of us are actually the ones tasked with the accounting for the town, so.
That's cool. Well, those can, those.
So I think that that's, am I right that,
Yes, you can archive whatever you have
expenditures are-
and create a new account, in the chart of accounts, so that shouldn't be much of a dilemma.
So,
Hang on a second. Yeah, roll funds, how much what's down there.
I'm wondering, I'm wondering if the concept that David had brought up that regarding personnel increases, rather than using a percentage, you just state a dollar amount.
You can do a dollar amount and then the percent, you can figure, you know, saying up to 5% initially, I would think for the first year. And I mean, we could do a dollar amount and just build on the dollar amount until we know that we get to a percentage in the next couple of years. So whether it be $10,000 versus $25,000, it might be easier to bullet to bite.
Yeah. Hoping that we don't get another
$20,000.
disaster next year. Can't tell.
I know. It's,
Knock on wood.
but we're mitigating, the mitigation, the things that we're doing to minimize these events with the ditching, the rock, the stone, hopefully will minimize any event that happens again. There's nothing, you know, Mother Nature's Mother Nature.
What happened in Kentucky? My brother's in
Oh my God, if that ever happened, you're goodbye.
And I'm telling you, I looked at the counties around it, he's from Frankfurt, and I looked at that swath and the width of that swath. 200 miles. I said, you've got to be kidding me, is this serious? And then you looked at that camper factory in Mayfield,
Yep.
I'm like, oh, it was shredded.
So,
That was awful.
I mean, this, nobody should quote me on this, but it looks to me maybe the numbers we're all talking about for the two budgets combined, 5% of that would be something like $24,000.
Okay.
Now, something else that's worth noting, just so we don't forget about it at this point, while you're talking about this stuff, is it appeared, granted, I don't know that these numbers have been audited yet still, but it did appear that in the general fund, we likely ended the last fiscal year with a surplus that could have been in the neighborhood of $30,000.
What, wait a minute, I didn't, okay, I'd have to revisit that because
30,000,
that's, I was nowhere near that. I
no.
had a surplus of $870.
For
A little far
For
apart.
the last fiscal year, the close of the last fiscal year?
And Samara thought it would be around $3,000.
Well, when I looked at it, I got.
Okay, so, because, I mean, I'm looking at the document that Samara created for us.
Okay,
So we're saying that that is totally wrong, obviously.
well, I took, again, I think part of the problem is that when you budget, you're taking into consideration that you're gonna collect, just say, $100,000 worth of taxes. But in reality, come June 30th, you have a delinquency of $6,000 or $8,000 or $10,000. Well, guess what? You didn't collect $100,000 worth of taxes. You only collected $90,000. And that becomes an account receivable. So, you know, next year when you collect that, that will offset what you lost this year. But the reality is when I looked at it over the weekend, I came with a surplus of about $870.
Oh, geez.
So, you know,
We
again,
don't have a surplus. Basically.
I didn't see a big surplus. First of all, and last year we got $5,000 from an election grant, which was not budgeted as an expenditure. I was able to secure a $5,000 election grant, which we use those funds to buy different things, the computer, the generator and the air conditioning and the electric, whatever we did. So part of that, you know, if you look at your comparison budget, which I sent you, like I say, those tax numbers up there, what really throws me off. But if you took those taxes out, delinquent taxes, and you add each item, you'll see that there was a surplus of about $600 or $800.
Samara left a personal copy of the governmental accounting book on the treasurer's desk for any of us to peruse if we so desire.
I'm looking at that as we speak. Well, no, I just, if I decide to run for, treasurer, I wanna have a pretty good handle of what to encounter, what I'm gonna encounter.
Right, that's what she
And
said to me.
I've already started that in motion, and Mike is very supportive and saying, he's already delegated responsibilities for me to do. As the assistant treasurer, I've done a lot of these things, so it's not foreign to me. But still, this year, because we're gonna have this incredible infusion of money that we have to spend or expend or however we do it, it's gonna take a little more of accounting. But, it's something that we can do. If someone should step up and say that, I'm a retired CPA and I wanna be the treasurer, God bless you,
Go
But,
ahead. And, yeah. All right, so
Do we need to make a vote? We can take a vote on that?
I don't think we need to do a vote.
no, you haven't
It's,
you haven't finished it yet.
Right,
Okay.
we're not voting on the budget.
Okay.
I just wanna
Only
point out,
discussing.
this is our last meeting of
This year.
the
Till
year
January 5th.
until January 5th, and on January 5th, we have to finalize the budget. Because January 19th, we have to vote the warrant. So we literally have one more, unless we're gonna call another special meeting, we literally have one more meeting to complete.
What are you missing?
Well, I think we're missing, to be honest, one of the things we're missing is the consolidation of all these things that we want to change. Because at some point, we don't have to figure this out right now, but at some point, somebody has to decide what the structure of the presentation of the town financials is going to be.
I'd like to work with you on it if you would have some
Well,
time.
Well, no, I'm.
The
we're not-
financials for this year are
Because
just
that's
gonna be.
something that's a requirement of the auditors.
Oh, the auditors,
Not
I think
us.
that's, okay, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's typically produced by the treasurer. And
And she's done the year end.
we supply the numbers that she plugs in for the new budget, but there's a lot of things that have to be, and I know I've asked this numerous times, and I'll ask it one more time. Have the auditors looked at the last fiscal year?
No, I wrote to them again yesterday, just
Okay.
trying to get a
Because-
bunch out of them.
Because the thing that's gonna happen is we're gonna get to the point where we need to produce a town report, and I'm gonna wash my hands of it. And when it
No, it's
doesn't go
frustrating.
out, it's gonna be,
It's frustrating.
it's gonna be, well, it's gonna
Well,
be
they
the
were the
town's
ones-
problem.
Yeah, the auditors were
So-
the ones who always did the report, supposedly. All right, well, I will call Frank,
Frank or Heidi or Kim or.
I'll try to call the calls out and see if I can get somebody on the phone. Because this is a concern. All right, so January 19th is the vote. All right, shall we move on?
So you think we need to have a special budget meeting?
Oh, not before,
Maybe, there might be something in January, maybe January
yeah,
12th.
they're not,
I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I think for the holidays, we should just put that to rest and enjoy the holiday.
yeah, you got that right.
I know I would like to.
All right, so, all right. I will check with the auditors about that. We can discuss a little bit more about a stabilization account. And otherwise, I think we're fairly well caught up, except for what we need to do for taxes for the schools. Correct? Okay, all right, if it's okay with you, any other new business? Now I'm gonna go right into the reports, we'll try to make these quickly as possible. Guy, town clerk report?
Basically, as I said before, the land records, the conveyances have slowed down. Basically now it's just a couple of people who paid off existing mortgages because they refied. So that's come down and it's just, people coming in with a lot of questions. That's what we do all the time. We answer questions and Gwen is continually doing the digitalization of our land records, which is a very slow process. But ARPA funds can be used for that particular project going forward.
Anything else?
Do you, with the slowdown, anticipate making the same amount in fees that you had the last 2 years that have been?
When I gave you the fees, I reflected thinking, what we did this year and what to anticipate. This year was a banner year, and right now I don't see that being the same as next year because we've already turned 10% of Brookline around. So I don't see that.
Thank you.
But with the world order being what it is, pure speculation.
Okay, all right, select board chair reports, I just have three quick things. One, I got an email from Marjorie Ray, she has to recuse herself from being our representative to the DV fiber board because she feels it might be a conflict of interest because she serves as a paid contractor, she builds and manages their website. So she's gonna have to recuse herself from being our representative. I did see Donald Demain, who was her alternate, and I spoke with him briefly. If it's okay with the select board, if you would be all right, he said he would step into her position and I would do the paperwork and remove Marjorie and move Donald from alternate to the representative to DV fiber. And we actually don't necessarily need a vote, it's he's already on the list.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, so that's fine. Okay, the other thing is that we got, Guy left, but I wanna talk, we got the Wi-Fi hotspot set up last week.
Sorry, what was Donald's last name?
Demaine, Domain,
Right, I remember.
okay? So Guy, the Wi-Fi hotspot,
Well, yeah, this past Saturday, we spent 3.5 hours, but it's been installed, and as I said, I wanted to kind of do a dry run on it to see if it works, and it seems to be working very well. If you go out tonight, you'll see there's a little blue light up in the corner, the end of the building, you'll see a little blue light, that's where the receiver is. I've had them install 2 firewalls because I was really concerned about security, and they did do that. And in the event that we have any reason to want to discontinue it, we just pull a plug. So I think it's up and running. I don't know how we broadcast it or what is. The company itself will list Brookline as a Wi-Fi hotspot on their directory where people looking for Wi-Fi hotspots will go. But to broadcast it in town, I'm not sure how we want to do it. And I don't.
it's one of two ways that I thought it would, besides
Front porch.
Julie, but I would also maybe get a little sign like David has for the recycling, a little sign in the yard. Wi-Fi hotspot.
I'm not too comfortable with that because I'm afraid that it could bring in, a bunch of teenagers who have parental guides at home, but here they wouldn't. And then before you know it, you'll
We
have
can't, but we can't,
Okay, but you have to anticipate that's a reality. They don't even have to have a password.
right,
They just come with their device and they're hooked up to the internet.
Right.
That's what the hotspot is.
right,
They can download pictures, they can do whatever they wanna do.
right.
So I think, I don't know, okay, I'll let the select board decide that, but from a standpoint of, having people hang out here at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and again, just thinking, it could be a problem for the town because we have our office here, we have, what starts out as a little thing, turns out to be a big thing, but we do have that ability to pull the plug. So that's, just my thinking. We've had a public Wi-Fi here now for, I think I've had it here for 3 years now. And people, when they come in, I say, oh, we have public Wi-Fi, and they love it. They get on, they use their devices, they check their emails and doing what they're doing. It seems to work very well. I don't know. I guess,
I haven't tried it myself, so I'll have to try it, but I think for Christmas, I think that I will be something that I would put out on the listserv.
Okay.
The listserv.
yeah, but as far as signage, I don't know.
All right, but if we, I can understand the signage issue, if we had signage, I think we should have an exterior security camera then, but that's neither
Yeah,
here nor
that's-
there right now. All right, so I'm gonna just move on, the Wi-Fi hotspot is up and running, we have an alternate for the DV fiber, and we talked about budget stabilization, which was my concern. So now we'll move on to Bruce.
Okay. I'll be quick. The first thing I wanted to say is that I realized today that in 2026 will be the 250th anniversary of this country, if we still have one. But in saying that, and I don't mean that in a sarcastic fashion, I won't go all into why I'm saying that. But also at the same year, the Brookline Meeting House will be 190 years old. I've given a lot of thought in the last year or so of making a presentation at some point to the meeting house, which I'll do sometime in the spring, I can't do it now, of just suggestions of thinking about a 5-year plan and organizing their thoughts in a straight direction and not being haphazard, not doing things. They've done a lot of work, they've done a lot of good things, but I just think a little bit more continuity and with the idea of making it so that the full use of the building can be used by the community.
I do have to say, we had a meeting yesterday, and that list is forthcoming, and it will be on the January 11th meeting again. And we're gonna be discussing that to-do list,
Okay,
2-3 year
great,
to-do list.
Great.
Basically because of the influx of money and the fact that we have to do
great,
some
because a
spending.
lot of, we gotta think about all these different things.
Go ahead.
Okay, secondly, back to my favorite spot, Susie's. Had a lot of trouble with that heating system. And I spent a lot of time, well in excess of 20 hours with these people, a lot of emails, a lot of calling back and forth to code and code. But I guess what I could say to try to make a long story short is like I said last time, I'm trying to get a better understanding of the system because every time I'll take the grab for it, somebody else control the system. Like I said to you last time, Stan, if it was my house, I wanna know what I'm doing. Bring the guy in, okay, what's going on? That's where I'm at right now. And then I found some stuff here that's been in my face for a long time. This information is actually in a folder next to the boiler. And it explains the entire system. So I'm gonna go over with Mark at one point. We're gonna sit down and talk about this once I understand it. But it explains everything, how the system works. And where I'm at right now with Coda and Coda is they didn't have hot water last week. They fixed that twice. That seems to be okay. They had a regulator that went bad on the same day. They fixed that. They should replace that. And it seems like we're not having to pick up the costs for all this because of the service plan. About that either. But basically what I'm doing right at this point is trying to understand the building. And Code is dedicated to coming back. They asked when their downtime is, so they come back and analyze the system better. And I'm trying to get my nose right into the middle of it so that I can understand that they are following everything in that system. Because there's things that are disconnected, power that's been disconnected, thermostats that are disconnected, zone valves and registers that have been disconnected over a period of time. Don't know who did it, when they did it. It was the schools, wasn't Tina, I doubt it, but it doesn't matter. The idea is to understand the system so that when I'm in a position where something's going wrong, that I can go right to it, bring them in and have them fix it. This was all done by Code and Code, by the way, years ago. And Code and Code, and every single last time, I think it's been 9 or 10 visits now, they've been there on the same day. And that says a lot to me.
No, they're
So,
good service.
You know, I've had some things that I haven't been too excited about, but like we talked about last time, Dave, I'm not really dwelling on that. I'm dwelling on understanding the system, getting to fix it. I've got a good rapport with Tucker at Coda and Coda, and hopefully in next week or so, we'll have better control of it. That's about all that's going on with that other than this.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Stan, I know you brought something up, part D here, concern. You want to come about listers? I'll say this. The list, well, 2 to 3 people got other jobs already that they are in, and the other one's like, so, yeah. So I was thinking of something to do before town meeting, which is what I saw New Thing do, and that would be to advertise ahead of time that there's this is up for elections, moderator, listers, whatever, select board positions that have to be rotated and so on and so forth, so. Okay, anything else? All right, Mark?
All right, basically, past couple weeks, just monitoring the roads after heavy rains, heavy winds, moving debris to the roads. Cleaning up around recycle bins. We did get in more truckloads of the 3/4 inch crushed stone at the town garage for future soft roads, in which already are noticing the warm up we had last weekend. Where we went from frozen roads, thawed out roads, and already accumulated 4-inch ruts in certain areas exposed to the sunlight and the warm. So keep monitoring. If we need the stone put in place, we'll make arrangements to do so. Still working with FEMA, which is Mel's coming tomorrow. Yeah, so it's with the change in weather, things have slowed up, but still working on the general maintenance list that I keep going at all times. So that's about it.
Okay, yes, sir.
There was one thing that I didn't put on my list, but I think I'd like to at least bring up, regarding a piece of equipment. I'm assuming at this point that it's an issue that we are not gonna deal with between now and preparing the town report. I mean, and not that we need to, but is it pretty much understood that we don't need to do any work on packaging things?
I don't think so at this
Okay.
point, we're just too swamped, and I know we'll probably be renting equipment anyway at some point, so who knows, but yeah. So we can put that on the back burner stamp. Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right, if that's it, I will move on to communications with mail, very quickly, yes,
We're not gonna go into executive session.
we are, we're gonna go right over here.
I don't have a list.
I
Okay.
apologize.
Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department is offering a conservation camp, if you know people who are interested in going to it. Rescue Inc. has sent us an invoice for $1,302.92, which is a flat fee for this year, and they're going to be increasing the next 2 contracts by 1% annual increases for the 20 after that. So that's an invoice that I'll leave here with the town clerk. The town of Putney has sent us a annual letter for the interlocal agreement, Putney property taxes versus Brookline road maintenance, which is the formal long-standing agreement between the two towns regarding the maintenance of Holland Hill, Bennett Road, and the town of Putney maintaining, plowing, sanding, gravel, and grading the Brookline portion of the road. The piece of property due in exchange, so please accept this letter as a request for the payment in the amount of $2,091.48, which is the amount of the 2021-2022 property tax bill for the parcel 000006002.
Okay.
So this is the thing, and it says David Jones, but if it's okay with you, David, I'm gonna cross your name off and sign.
That's very important.
Yeah.
So I wrote the amount there.
The amount of the is $2,091.48.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. You did that without even moving your lips, Peter. And the town clerk received a letter from the Southeastern Vermont Watershed Alliance thanking us for supporting the towns and that the clean water benefits all the residents. So those are the three major ones. There wasn't really any major email communications except the ones I shared with you from Mr. Parker. Okay, now we're gonna go into payroll warrant. I'd like to, okay, make sure I can do this correctly. I'd like to make a motion that we approve payroll warrant 2022-23 dated December 8th, 2021 for the amount of $5,044.58. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Bruce. Any discussion? I will have to say that I did sign this last week because it's all direct deposit. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of approving payroll warrant 2022-23 dated 12/08/21 for $5,044.58 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, the motion passed. I would like to make a motion that we approve accounts payable warrant 2022-24 dated December 15th, 2021 in the amount of, there's a lot of numbers here, $261,319.77. Seconded by, any motion? You seconded it.
When would you send it?
I didn't second anything.
Oh,
When would you send it?
I never saw it, so.
I never have,
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I think I have it at home. Really?
Never
oh, you
saw
know, I don't think it came, I
didn't remember seeing it, circulated.
Email, I didn't saw it.
I did not get it in the email either, I'm sorry, so I will give you all time to look them all over.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we can, Peter, do you have those numbers?
I do.
All right, I will have to email you later on about when this got approved or not, okay? So this is accounts payable.
The big number is the school tax.
Payable.
Yeah.
So we're going to
Okay.
table this at this moment so that people have a chance to review it, a little bit longer. Okay? All right. Sorry about that. We're setting the agenda for the next select board meeting on January 5th, 2022. We need to do budget.
Look at me.
Well, we'll probably also have to draft the warning.
Excuse me, but
Town meeting warning.
Right.
you have to approve that warrant
We will
because-
approve it.
tonight, because I have to sign the checks tomorrow. And some of those things are due within the next couple of days, so just,
We can read it now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna-
Yeah, so-
I had a chance to look at them.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll, yeah.
Okay, so we'll pass it around. So the budget, draft the warning, and if we might, I don't know, if we have to do, we'll see after these. And at this point, I'm going to well, when we come out of executive session, we'll have a chance to vote on the accounts payable, correct?
Sure.
All right, so Peter,
That's
I
not
will
what
write
we're
to you
gonna discuss.
about who motioned and seconded the accounts payable warrant when we return before the meeting is adjourned. Okay, so at this point, I am going to read the following. I make a motion to find that premature general public knowledge regarding the town's lease contract with Susie's Little Peanuts owner Susie Kohamash would place the town in a disadvantage because the select board risks disclosing its negotiation strategy if it discusses the proposed contract terms in public. May I have a second to the motion?
Second.
seconded by Stan. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving this motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you all. Motion passes. I'd like to make a second motion at this time to enter into an executive session to discuss the town's lease contract with Suzie Carter Marsh under the provisions of Title I, Section 212A, 1A of the Vermont statutes. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by David. Any discussion? Hearing none. All of those in favor of approving the second motion, which would bring us into executive session, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. We will be entering into executive session after a short 3-minute recess.